Pointing out some flaws. More exposure on the fraud of Jay Dyer. By James P. Pearce. Here are a few snippets from the fraud that is Jay Dyer. For example, Jay Dyer, Nature. Jay Dyer, the energies of God are fully and wholly the divine nature, Feb. 19, 2019. This was a recent statement. Now I am no theologian, and neither is he. I am sure he would have retracted or make sure he misspoke. He probably did not. I saw his debate with Trent Horn. This might have been better attuned to that conversation. I would defer to Trent with better theological training between both Jay and myself. I get that Trent is a Catholic, but he is way more reputable than Jay. I mean, the guy on the street saying the end is near is more reputable than Jay by this point. Now, for the actual theological part, here is the source material for this refutation. A snippet from http://myagpeya.com/blog/e/:. According to many in the Eastern Orthodox Church, God is essence and energies. While the Church Fathers made a distinction between the essence of God and his energies, his attributes and operations, I could not find any Fathers who said God is essence and energies. To the contrary, the Fathers maintained that God is simple and not compound, and that God's qualities, attributes, will, and operations are not God, even though they are divine. Those who promote this view argue that anything that is uncreated is God, therefore they maintain that God's energies must be God. But defining the divinity based on attributes and not essence, is the foundation for the argument in support of the Eunomian Heresy. The Arians, Eunomians argued that since the Word is begotten and the Father is unbegotten, the Word cannot be God. To correct this error, God is both essence and energies. These are separate actions and not compound. God's qualities, attributes, will, and operations are not God, even though they are divine. These are known to us as God's energies, which is separate from his essence, which is separate but in union with Christ and the Holy Spirit, which is why they are begotten from the Father and proceed from him. The essence-energy distinction. Perhaps the most important contribution Palamas made to Orthodox theology was his distinction between the essence and energies of God. While we cannot know God in his essence, God in himself, we can know him in his energies, the work of God's grace in our lives, and who God is in relation to the creation and mankind. Both essence and energies are fully God. Therefore, when interacting with God's energies, we interact with the uncreated God himself, while his essence still remains unknowable and unreachable. Those who promote this view argue that anything that is uncreated is God, therefore they maintain that God's energies must be God. Only God is uncreated, only God holds this as the essence of God. Here might be an example on how much he stumbled with this one, again. Jay Dyer, these energetic processions. They are not the nature of God. They are not the essence of God. July 15, 2018. He denies the theoanthropic nature of Christ. For this, he has gotten wrong several times, no need to go into detail here about it. There are several videos exposing Dyer for it. Another snippet from http://myagpeya.com/blog/e/:. Thus, they made a mere quality or attribute, to be begotten or unbegotten, the criteria for the divinity. Similarly, many assert that God's energies are uncreated and therefore God. While not denying that God is uncreated, the Church Fathers already refuted this type of reasoning by explaining that it is not the mode of origin, or lack of, that is the criteria for the divinity. In other words, it is not the qualities or attributes of God but rather his essence which makes God who he is. The Fathers explained that even though God's energies are divine and belong to God, because they are not the divine essence, they are not God. Otherwise, the heretics would be right who argued that the Son of God is not truly God because he is begotten and not unbegotten. Additionally, God would be compound and not simple if we say God is essence and energies, as this would violate the fundamental theological principle of divine simplicity. So by this point you can see how his studies have led him to get this all confused. Of course there is a distinction of God's essences and energies, but God is not compound with this as pointed out in the article referenced. He entirely gets it wrong across the board. Nor do I care to reference his article because of the inconsistency he has shown across the board. Energetic processions are a better way to say God's energies, which is separate once again from God's essence, because the intermingling or commingling as pointed out would lead to the heresies of Arianism or Eunomianism as previously mentioned. Arianism was the heresy of questioning Christ in his full personhood. We know Christ, so therefore we have God revealed to us here in this material world as the Theoanthropos. The issue is that Dyer denies that still. He touts on how he knows Father Staniloae, when this video is pointed out that he does not. The video description. Is it wrong to say Christ is a human person? Isn't that Nestorian? I dive into Father Dumitru Staniloae's work to see what he thinks. If you are not able to watch the video, long story short, he refutes Dyer and uses Father Staniloae's own words against what Dyer doesn't understand. Again, I could go on and on about he continues to miss the mark, and I also was going to read his article on this, until I saw its once again overtly long length and I read some lines. What a complete fraud.